everyone, my name is Ariel Neidermeier. I'm an astrologer and I'm here back again to give you your no-nonsense November 2020 astrological forecast. Thanks for being here. And you know, if you watched my October forecast, I did say it was going to be the most challenging month of the year. So I actually just wanted to start off this video by asking you, how you doing? Last month was incredibly challenging for me, really testing time, and so, you know, I'm just hoping that all of you out there are hanging in there. We've only got 2 more months of 2020, and what a year it's been, right? So today I want to talk about the good news, which is that Mercury and Mars are both going to be going direct after being retrograde. Mercury since October and then Mars since September. And those dates, Mercury will be going direct on November 3rd, the day of the presidential election in the United States. Mars will be going direct on November 13th, Friday the 13th actually. And then finally, I want to talk about the Gemini lunar eclipse at the end of the month on November 30th. So let's get started. You know, unless you've been living under a rock, you probably know that the election is this month. And November 3rd, we will all be going to the polls, voting. If you haven't already mailed in your vote, we should technically know who the President of the United States is that day. But with Mercury going retrograde, I do see there being a delay with that. So the last time that a Mercury retrograde occurred, the day of an election, was actually the presidential election of 2000. So it was Al Gore versus George W. Bush. If you remember that election, that was the one where the ballot counting was so contested in Florida that actually the decision had to go to the Supreme Court, and it wasn't decided who the President of the United States was going to be until December 12th. So again, I think this election is everyone's been asking me who's gonna win, which I don't have an answer for you. I know it's gonna be really close. Both contestants have very impactful transits happening on an individual level in their charts. It's gonna be a nail biter, and what I can tell you is that we will not know who the next president in the United States is going to be on November 3rd. I see that decision coming later in the month, if not even farther along in the year than that, unfortunately. And it's going to be so close that I think there will be a situation where it's going to be contested. It might need to go to the Supreme Court. There have been new developments on the Supreme Court, so maybe that will lead you down the path of a logical assessment of what's going to happen. And, you know, on a personal level, Mercury retrograde, it's just an opportunity to review and revise your approach. All retrogrades kind of slow you down, so there'll be delays, things will break, conflicts will occur that will really force your attention. It's all about attention. You know, my hope for all of you with this Mercury retrograde being in Scorpio is that it really forced you to stand still and examine your fears. Scorpio is a water sign. It's the sign of death, rebirth, and transformation, the sign of healing, but also the sign of fear. And the fears that keep you up at night, the worries and the anxieties that cause you dread. And so you might have had an opportunity to really come to terms with your fears and why they're your greatest fears. So my hope for you is that you had some learning around that. With Mercury going direct, just know that the first half of that first week of the month, if you do any paperwork, any big decisions, you might need to review them and redo them later in the week. Which brings me to Mars going direct. So a lot of people, you know, they come to me and they're like, God, things have been so difficult and challenging recently. This Mercury retrograde has been really difficult. Here's the thing. It wasn't the Mercury retrograde that was causing you all of the challenges. It was really the Mars retrograde. And it's because Mars was in Aries, which is a very fiery sign. And Mars actually rules the sign of Aries. This Mars retrograde was particularly combative because Mars was making very challenging aspects to other planets in the sky while it was retrograding. So it was a hard one. Yeah, it was a hard one, but it's finally going to be over on November 13th, Friday the 13th. And you know, with Mars and Aries, the energy there, Mars is the go-getter planet. It's all about drive and ambition and getting what you want. So is Aries. Aries is a sign of individuality, confidence, and determination. with those two energies put together, it's so go-getter. And so what you might have noticed with the Mars retrograde, and this is what I was saying, is when it first started, is it feels like there's like this big fire inside of you to get stuff done, but it's like you don't have the tools to do it, or there's delays and what have you. And so, and it actually is really ironic, I say fire, the day that Mars went retrograde on September 9th was actually the day that the wildfires broke out on the West Coast. So it really is kind of that energy of a wildfire. And you want to go and you want to get stuff done. And what you might have encountered with this Mars retrograde is that your plans were thwarted. Maybe you wanted this thing, and then a conflict came up with a friend or family member or coworker. You wanted this thing, but then there was a delay. And so what it should have done is really push you to examine the things you really want. Why do you want them? And after everything that's happened in October and earlier in the year with this Mars retrograde, October and September, do you still want them even, you know? So, you know, after this Mars retrograde, the question is, do you feel beaten down? Me too. But do you feel beaten? Me either, you know? And it's really a question of how much fight do you have in you? What do you want? Do you still want it? And how much fight do you have left to go and get it? Now that Mars is going direct, you will have the energetic resources to go and get the thing. It's just a question of, do you want it still? And yeah, this has been a really, really, really testing Mars retrograde for me. It's been incredibly illuminating. You know, with my clients and people I've spoken to about it, it's been the same for them. And yeah, I hope that you learned something. The other thing about this Mars retrograde is that it's coinciding with the Scorpio new moon on November 15th, which is also going to be sextile Jupiter. All of this is to say that that is going to be a really nice full moon, or new moon, to start things. And especially with Mars going direct, it's like, if you sort of felt like stuck in place and I don't want to start this new business venture, blah, 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 lockdown, like, that's a good time to start things. So like November 13th through the 15th, like, go and get them, especially around that new moon. That new moon is really, really prosperous and lucky, especially in aspect to Jupiter, which is the planet of prosperity, wealth, and abundance. Okay, last but not least, I want to talk about the Gemini lunar eclipse at the end of the month on November 30th. Lunar eclipses are like amplified full moons. So the sun is going to be in Sagittarius, the moon will be in Gemini, they'll be in very close critical alignment with the earth, which is what causes an eclipse. This eclipse in particular, you will be able to see a really beautiful red-orange moon. So I would mark your calendars to do some stargazing that night, because it's going to be incredible looking. But yeah, so Gemini is a sign, it's an air sign that's all about information, but it reminds me of a butterfly. You know, they flit from thing to thing. They're really great at multitasking. They love to be learning new things, they're very curious. And you know, all eclipses, solar and lunar eclipses, are all about endings and beginnings. And they tend to, like in the same way a retrograde does, kind of push your focus. With Gemini loves to keep moving and just like flitting from thing to thing, but this eclipse will really force the butterfly, the you know, kind of like, I want to just keep it moving inside of you, to stop and focus. And there's a manic energy to Gemini, and there will be a manic energy to this lunar eclipse, but then something will happen that will really force you to stop and evaluate the critical things that are happening around that. And eclipses always coincide with very critical moments, and moments that change everything, change your point of view. So just watch out for that. One last note, and I know I'm running out of time, but one last note is that on November 12th, and I didn't talk about this specifically because I don't want to spend too much time on it or, you know, fearmonger anyone, but on November 12th, there will be the third conjunction between Pluto and Jupiter. Now this is a conjunction, as I said, it's happened 2 other times, one in April and one in June, and it's actually that conjunction specifically when Jupiter and Pluto have been right next to each other in the sky, and you can actually like see Jupiter in the sky if you look up at the sky. It's like so close, but that conjunction has coincided with the rises and the waves of COVID. So my prediction is that there is going to be another market rise of COVID. We're already seeing it in the news. And potentially a lot of countries are going to go back into lockdown measures after reopening. So something to think about, and something to maybe, I just want to flag your expectations around. Okay, so that is your November forecast. How much fight do you have in you? Do you feel beaten down? But remember, you might be feeling beaten down, but remember, you are not beaten. 2 more months of 2020. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for staying awake. Again, my name is Ariel Neidermeier. I'm an astrologer. You can catch me on Spot the Witch on Instagram, and I will see you in November.